From the Samuel Institute headquarters in Alexandria, Virginia, this is On Human Flourishing. I'm Dr. Wayne Jonas. My guest today is Dr. Scott Shreve. Dr. Shreve is involved in a breakthrough collaborative session here on optimal healing environments in home and hospice and palliative care at the Samuel Institute. But we're very honored both to have him to participate in that. He currently serves as the National Director of Hospice and Palliative Care at the Department of Veterans Affairs, where he's responsible for all policy, program development, staff education, and quality assurance for palliative and hospice care, provided or purchased by the veterans. Between 2009 and 2012, he led the implementation and oversight of a comprehensive end-of-life care initiative to really change the culture of care for veterans with serious illness and to assure reliable access to quality palliative care. Dr. Shreve, we're really honored to have you here and to both participate in the dialogue today at the Institute and also taking time to tell some of our listeners that include practitioners and I think the public about palliative care, its importance, and what the VA is doing in those areas.
Great. Thank you. An honor to be here, and look forward to sharing a lot of news and hopefully some good experiences about things that are going on both within VA and in our collaborations with the community.
That's great. Thank you. I'd like to start first by finding out a little bit about how you got involved in these areas. I mean, you're a physician, a DO, I believe,
yes.
And internist. Is that correct?
Yes, I am.
Yes. And how did you get into palliative care? I mean,
for many of us, it was not a driving career choice from the start. For me, I did a geriatrics fellowship after internal medicine residency and joined the VA. And a few months after being at the VA, was walking down the hall, and a chaplain came up to me who I'd worked with some and said, "Dr. Shreve, could you help in caring for dying veterans?" And I said, "Boy, you know, why do I need to do that? I kind of wanted to be a researcher and a geriatrician." And he said, "None of the other doctors want to take care of dying veterans. Would you help us out?" And I said, "Oh, if you put it that way, I really have to." And my boss at the time told me it would ruin my career, and he tried to stop it. Thankfully, the director of the facility overrode him, and I still get Christmas cards from my former boss, and he has shared that I've managed to make something of my career in spite of my choice to go into palliative and end-of-life care.
But that's interesting. I mean, the message was don't go there, right?
Exactly.
In medical school, I had the same message in medical school. Don't go there. That's
exactly.
It's sort of a thankless job. It really doesn't take the best cure technologies that are going to be used and this type of thing. And yet the need is growing. It will continue to grow as sort of baby boomers now move into the tsunami of end of life as they go into those areas. And so it's fascinating that a chaplain sort of lured you into that.
He did, and just to complete the story, there was a nurse manager who, the chaplain and the nurse manager colluded, if you will, to establish a hospice unit. And in, like many organizations, they were given permission but no resources. Right. And this nurse manager was really the foundation for me on learning how to care for veterans at end of life. And I still see her periodically. She's long since retired, but I'm so grateful to her for introducing these concepts of providing quality care at the end of life. It really has been a blessing.
That's fantastic. I mean, I want to do a shout out to the chaplain who did that. My father was a chaplain in the Army for 30 years, went through 3 wars, got some palliative care towards the end of his life at the Veterans Administration, at Veterans Hospital, and it was tremendous for him. And my daughter is currently a hospital chaplain.
Awesome.
So I'm sandwiched on both sides by the importance of the care part of medicine. So often we focus in medicine, especially as physicians and healthcare and the system itself, on the cure part, and we forget about the care part. Tell me a little bit about care and why it's so important, and how the Veterans Program that you really developed and launched got started, and what it's doing.
Sure. It was great, and like many things in big organizations, there's a story, and I'll share with you my half-time position as National Director of Hospice and Palliative Care began back around 2004, and And I don't know in your organization, but when you want to make change across a system, it oftentimes takes some resources, getting people engaged, getting leadership engaged, and I knocked on a lot of doors and really tried to get the energy going behind the initiative, and quite frankly, wasn't very successful. And then I got called into what I'll call a high-level office at the VA in headquarters in Washington, D.C., and a financial person sat me down and said, Scott, you just don't understand how fragmented care is. They didn't listen to the patient. They didn't pay attention to symptoms. And you know what? This was my mother. She's not even a veteran. How can you help me change the VA so maybe we can impact the rest of the world and make things better? So here's a fiscal person, kind of calling me in and saying we need to change the world because of a personal experience. And don't get me wrong, there were many other senior leaders who wanted to see these changes happen, but this was the spark that this person said, we really need to make it happen. And so he pointed me in a direction of 6 more committees that you have to go to ask for money and resources and all that. But the ball started rolling. And from there, every committee I went to, the support just grew and grew to the point where we had a 4-year national initiative. And let me just put that into perspective for people who may not be familiar with it. A decade ago, half of VA medical centers weren't making any referrals for hospice.
Really?
It was like death doesn't occur at these medical centers.
Right.
There was very few teams, palliative care teams. So fast forward now, a decade forward after this initiative has been in place, we have a palliative care interdisciplinary team in every VA medical center. 73% of our inpatient deaths have had a palliative care consult before they died. And it's just, when you have that kind of penetration, that the palliative care team is engaged in that many people at end of life, and I don't know another system in the country that is matching that. There may be, but I think that's on the higher end of things across the country. And then the last kind of percentage I'll put out there is 52% of inpatient deaths in the VA system occur in designated hospice beds.
Really?
So here we have a system now that 10 years ago wasn't even making hospice referrals, to the point where now half of our inpatient deaths, more than half of our inpatient deaths, are occurring in designated hospice beds with hospice teams, and it's just become a part of our culture. And it's opening up beds in the ICU. It's getting people to raise the awareness of hospice and palliative care is just opening up. They're part of the team, and it's become a natural transition. And it happened kind of incrementally. I was speaking to Diane Meyer just about a month ago, and she goes, Scott, I think we've reached the tipping point. I really think the Sisyphean efforts of pushing this rock up the hill, maybe we crested a little bit, and things are starting to turn. So anyway,
wow, that's fantastic. I mean, as I think back of my own father's career and my career in the military, the importance of this is key. And I don't know of any other system that is doing this. In fact, right now, the VA has been a little embattled, haven't they? I mean,
for sure.
In terms of the access issues, all the changes that are going on,
For sure.
A lot of congressional scrutiny. Most of it has been sort of pretty negative. At least the messages have been pretty negative. This is really a very positive message in terms of how the VA is enhancing the care of its dying veterans in these areas. So that's a shout out. I heard that there was a new program that was on NPR just a couple weeks ago called Honor Our Vets. Is that what it was?
We Honor Veterans.
We Honor Veterans.
Yeah,
Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. That's a great story that roughly a little over 600,000 veterans died this past year, and not all of them are enrolled in the VA. Maybe about a third are actually enrolled in VA, get care from the VA system. If you figure it out, 3% of veterans die in VA facilities. So where are 97% of our veteran population dying? And that's 1 in 4 Americans, but if you happen to look at just men, it's probably 1 in 2 of all the deaths in America. So we realized strategically about 4 years ago, we needed to partner with the community, and went to the National Hospice Palliative Care Organization and established this program called We Honor Veterans, where you engage community hospices and empower them about veteran issues, how to work with VAs, which aren't always the easiest organization to work with. And so those linkages, I'll just tell you, when we knew we had something, when Walmart called and said, how can we participate? This was a program set up for community hospices. We never envisioned Walmart. Now there's over 900 non-hospice organizations in addition to the 2,500 community hospices which have made this commitment to honor veterans at end of life. So anyway, it's been a wonderful ride, and I think it's a worthy program.
That's a great story. I'm always so impressed how often both the DoD and often the veterans will be sort of first out in many places where they're doing the right thing. How do we get the rest of the country to follow suit here and really follow the leadership? Yeah, I think there was a report that came out just today showing that if you compare the amount of pain that individuals have at the end of life and the amount of depression compared to 1998, the year after the Institute of Medicine report came out on the end of life, that it's gone up 16% or 26% increase in depression, 12% increase in pain at the end of life. What do we need to do to get the rest of the country to sort of wake up to this area?
I don't know the details of that report, but I trust your figures there. I'll kind of put out a compliment to the Samueli Institute that, just today we spent better part of 8 hours in a collaborative breakthrough on reducing symptoms in those with advanced illness. And the figures that you just shared tell me that we are not making progress in some very important symptom issues. To tie into this, VA was very fortunate to receive the American Hospital Association Citation of Honor Award in 2013 for our hospice palliative care program. One of the areas where we could have done better, and we learned from that application and award process, is how do we know if somebody's comfortable or getting good comfort care in real time today, this minute. And that's something I don't think many healthcare systems have. We may get it months or whatever weeks down the road, what was a pain score and what could we have done better? But that real time, how can we make people better? How do we know our clinicians and other providers are really addressing the symptom needs today? We're still learning how to do that.
Well, I think that award actually was awarded to you in the American Hospital
No,
Association.
it was
to the VA.
It was to the Veterans Health Administration.
I think that's a great area. This report, and again, I haven't read the full report either, but what they were describing, two driving factors for why this sort of backtracking almost, if you will, in the general area of end-of-life care. Was the continued growth and dominance of high-tech interventions that are available and are applied now even in cases at the end of the life. And the other one was more a language and an honesty in terms of the ability of the skills of physicians to really have the hard conversations with people at the end of life. To talk about what are the needs at the end of life. And our system and our culture tends to just not want to talk about it. They just want to intervene and just don't even talk about death. It's sort of off the table, isn't it?
I agree.
And so these are issues that you must have to overcome within the VA system to allow that to happen.
We do. You really you were only there for part of the meeting, but we spent hours and came to the conclusion that effective communication is at the pinnacle of making those changes happen in our today's Breakthrough Collaborative. And stepping kind of back and putting on my VA hat, what we have done as a system is worked with some national experts on communications, and this is a Vital Talk program. They're a not-for-profit, and our goal is to train primary care physicians how to have these discussions. And our belief is, one, that they'll elicit the goals of care of these patients, and help patients when it's unwanted or unnecessary for them to go into the, say, ICU or ED, that perhaps we can cater the care to meeting their needs as opposed to what maybe I've heard referred to as the default mode of do everything humanly possible, whether it's going to really change the outcome or not. So I think that is our initial approach. We start the training in, it's a series of regional trainings, and we start that in 2 weeks.
That's fantastic. So a lot of our listeners are patients themselves. They themselves or perhaps have family members that are approaching the end of life or at end of life. What should they look for? What should they ask for when they go into a hospital situation where it looks like they're at the end of life? What should they be doing?
Yeah, that is a powerful question. I've heard it said that no one should go into the hospital now without a strong advocate, because sometimes you can't speak for yourself if you're severely ill. So I think having a good, informed surrogate and advocate is paramount. Well, I don't want to sound like a salesperson, but there are online resources and even other resources to help people think through what is important to them and to better communicate that to their healthcare team and providers. Certainly the 5 wishes come to mind, but Rebecca Sidori from the VA has done some work on Prepare for Your Care, and it's growing in the VA world with very specific things. Dr. Tracy Gaudette has personalized health plans. He's personalized healthcare plans. And the more we can do to help empower patients when they go in to not just kind of passively accept whatever is offered, I think the better informed they are and better decisions get made.
These are not just things that are valuable for veterans. This is
Exactly.
actually the way that people should learn these to bring them into their non-veteran situation.
Definitely.
When they're in theirs.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's a little bit difficult question, perhaps.
Okay.
What does it mean to heal at the end of life? I mean, what does it mean to be well and to heal at the end of life? Cure and care are both important parts, but how do you know that you're healing when you can't cure?
I think that's a wonderful question, and quite frankly, I believe I learned more of what that means over the course of my career and working with dying veterans and their families. Deb Grassman is a great resource there and has spoken nationally about healing at the end of life. One of the examples that crosses my mind is a patient we had cared for on our unit, and this was a Marine Corps veteran, and he came and I asked him, do you have troubling thoughts or memories from your combat experience? And this rugged-looking veteran Marine broke down in tears and cried, and he said, I don't even talk about it, and he couldn't bear to open up with me. And I thought it so fascinating that in our unit where he was, our chaplain goes back and we have a kitchen, and our chaplain sits with him and has a cup of coffee and cookies or donuts and stuff. And about a week went by, and I asked the veteran, how are you doing? I know you were real sensitive. I asked you a question. I apologize, but I just feel obligated to kind of follow up with you. He said, Dr. Shreve, don't worry about it. The chaplain and I took care of everything. And I never knew the details.
The same Marine?
Same Marine. Yeah,
goodness.
the same guy. And I wanted to share that, did we cure his metastatic cancer? Absolutely not. Did we help him to heal before he died? I am convinced he was much more content and at peace. And I've never tried to intrude in the discussions he had with the chaplain back there. And I know there were some lengthy discussions, but for him, he came to a place of peace and contentment with whatever had happened.
Yeah. What I hear you saying is that healing and curing are different things.
I think
we
so.
need both of them.
I agree.
And we need to make healing just as important as curing.
I agree completely. And sometimes, in fact, I get most of the time, I talk to the internal medicine residents in the ICU. Tell me how many people you've cured today, of heart failure, of COPD. They can't come up with many people. A few infections sometimes they cure, but most everybody else, they're doing palliative medicine. They just haven't figured it out yet. So they're really caring. They don't know it yet, but I shouldn't say they don't know it. They may not realize it, but they're doing as much caring as I think they are curing.
Dr. Shreve, thank you so much for coming in, both participating in our sessions today at the Samuel Institute and also in what you've been doing for our veterans. Thank you.
An honor to be here. Thank you.
Great. The need for patient-focused care for those who are suffering from advanced chronic illness or are at the end of life is greatly increasing. The baby boomers are now aging and will overwhelm the medical system with the need for palliative and end-of-life care. palliative and end-of-life care is a central focus for veterans and has been effective in many programs in place that are especially catered to the nation's military service members. The nation should learn from this system about end-of-life care. No longer are they in denial of death, and so patients at the end of life are provided with resources to aid them as they prepare for passing. The VA leads by example. How do we get the rest of the country to follow suit? Through collaborative efforts such as Samueli Institute's Breakthrough Collaborative Series, experts in the field of hospice and palliative care convene to discuss and act on these issues. As Dr. Shreve pointed out, the effort is ongoing, but the need is great and only increases as the population ages. This episode marks the end of Season 1 of On Human Flourishing. Thank you for listening. Season 2 of the podcast will kick off in September. We're hard at work in preparing episodes covering a range of topics and guests, including Mrs. Patty Shinseki, Dr. Jeffrey Ling, Dr. Pamela Peake, and many others. We look forward to meaningful discussions, and we hope that you will join us. In the meantime, you can catch up on Season 1 of On Human Flourishing by subscribing for free through the iTunes Store. And if you have a moment, please rate us. Thank you.